How's it going, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Armchair Analysis. Today is the beginning of preview season here on this channel, where we do cover 68 teams over the course of 68 days. This goes from here until August 7th is what the dates have marked out. And I'm very excited for it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun last year when we did it, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what y'all have to say. Of course, this is kind of one of our biggest growth periods on the channel, was preview season last year. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see what you guys have to say. And as always, understand that you know your team better than I do. I'm just one person trying to put together 68 videos for every single team. Some things are going to get missed. Some things might get overlooked. Similarly to the top 10 list videos that I just got done with. Some things just get missed, unfortunately. When you're one person trying to do all the stats, info, and graphics and record, it takes a lot of time. So all I ask is that you guys show a little grace, but let me know in the comments down below. Let the viewers know down in the comments what may have been missed throughout the course of this video, some things that you may think a little differently on. Always happy to hear those comments and thoughts down below in the description. Of course, if you are new around here, please like, subscribe, check us out on socials, join the Discord. A lot of fun stuff going to happen over there. And you can also follow us on Spotify. Trying to get everything figured out. I believe with this video going forward, everything on Spotify should be fixed. So hopefully we have that case figured out. With all that said, let's go ahead and get into this thing and talk about the Syracuse Orange. And to do this, we always have some graphics that we'll throw up on the screen for those who are new around here and have not seen preview season before. This part's a little bit new. The graphics for every single piece of this team are new, but I think it's a very welcome addition. It gives you guys something to look at that's not just my face, especially in this position I'm in right now, a little sunburnt after a weekend away. So you look at this team, and the 2025 stats were not particularly great in any regard. Now, some of this falls because this team was hampered by injuries last year. It started with Steve Angeli and kind of went downhill from there. The offensive line was never really great either. That shows in the rush yardage, but also the pass yards. I mean, the quarterbacks just never felt comfortable, no matter who it was. And while I feel like there is a more suitable backup this year, and two more suitable backups this year to Steve Angeli, there's still a lot to be desired from this offensive line. I still lack that confidence yet. And I'll explain why here in a little bit. But when you look at this team last year, 20.2 points per game. Now, that's not fully kind of indicative of what they really were last year. This is a team that was scoring a lot of points, actually, when Steve Angeli was on the field. Now, of course, that injury changed a lot of things, and I think that was where the trajectory really started to go downhill. You've seen Willis had to take a lot more on as that lead back, and things just never really seemed to work out. The quarterback position was certainly one of a lot of concern, and they addressed it after last year, but it was one of a lot of concern throughout the course of the year. 20 points per game, 340 yards per game, 217 passing yards per game, and then 123 rush yards per game. You would have felt those numbers would have been better, and they probably should have been, but again, losing Steve Angeli really made this offense one-dimensional for the majority of the year. The defense allowed 34.9 points per game. Just was not great, but they were on the field a lot. I feel like a lot of this is going to come down just a little bit naturally through the way this season might go. 427 yards per game allowed, 252 passing yards per game allowed, and then rush yards per game allowed, 174.9. They have 6.2 penalties per game. That comes out to be 75th in college football, and a turnover margin of negative 1.1. When you look at this roster going into 2026, it's got 62% returning production according to ESPN. 16 seniors on this roster. Very young team, but a lot of that comes on the defensive side of the ball. 24 juniors, 24 sophomores, and 36 freshmen. It's a very young team at Syracuse, but don't mistake the youth for inexperience. There's actually a lot of returning production at 62%, but a lot of guys that come in from the transfer portal who have a lot of experience themselves. I think there's some good stuff really in this Syracuse program to look at. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the 2026 offense projected by me. At quarterback, Steve Angeli. I think there's really no question about that. I expect some big things from him this year. I think he was on target for a really big year. 1,300 passing yards in just his first 4 games with 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions was a 78 grade by PFF offensively. I feel like there's a lot of good stuff that's going to come from Steve Angeli this year. I'm very excited for what he brings to the table. When you look at the backup options, Malachi Nelson comes over from UTEP, but I think the true backup is going to be Amari Odom from Kennesaw State. 2,500 and almost 2,600 passing yards last year, 19 touchdowns to 8 picks. Added a little bit on the ground, and that fits a lot more of what this offense is going to like to do under Jeff Nixon, Michael Johnson, the co-offensive coordinator there. I feel like that's going to be a good step towards a solid backup position, Amari Odom. Malachi Nelson, I think, is likely going to slot in as a third, and then if they need a fourth, I mean, and hopefully they don't, hopefully those injury concerns don't remain in 2026. Danny Lauder comes over from Georgetown, had 618 yards and a partial season after being hurt. You look at the running back position, I'm expecting Ahmad Miller to be the starter. Comes over from Jackson State, was a 1,000-yard rusher last year with 5 touchdowns. The touchdown number's not great, but again, a 1,000-yard rusher. Really good stuff out of Mississippi. Jawan Johnson comes over from LSU. I think he'll be the backup with Tyreek Hill as the third string. Davion Kerr is there as the third or as the fourth if they need him. The big thing here, I think, how does Ahmad Miller fill the shoes of Yasin Willis? I think he can be a really solid number 1 back. Just will they fall a step backwards? I don't really know. With Yasin Willis transferring out to Kansas, going to be some question marks maybe around that position, how Ahmad Miller adjusts to the FBS game. But I think that they'll be fine. I expect a really balanced offense this year, honestly, and I think Ahmad Miller is going to be a big part of that. At the wide receiver position, Calvin Russell is, I think, going to step into the wide receiver 1 spot from the jump. He's one of the best wide receiver prospects in college football last year, or in the high school ranks last year. Expecting some big things from him in his true freshman season. Wide receiver 2, I expect it to be Zamondre Merriweather. I think he'll have a pretty solid year. He's coming over from the JUCO route. Expect to see Cole Weaver as wide receiver number 3. Comes over from Miami, Ohio. I think he's going to have that kind of year. And then at some point, I would expect Umari Hatcher to step in and place a good amount of snaps too. That's a name that didn't cross because he was injured the majority of last year. But whenever he can be fully healthy, whenever he has a chance to actually return to the field, I would expect Amari Hatcher in his senior year to get some good run as well. Some other names that are on this roster you might want to take note of. Elijah Moore comes over from Florida State, had 52 receiving yards last year, has a total of 69 in his career. Nice, but only has 69 receiving yards in his career. Where will that go? Matthew Alton comes over from Penn State, redshirted his freshman year last year, did not play at all. And then Darian Williams returns. He's actually the leading receiver from the team last year that returns. Darian Williams is. And then beyond that, I mean, there's really not a whole lot left in the receiving game. When you look at the tight end position, it's David Clement, returns 38 yards from 2025. Going to have to find a way to fill the role that Dan Villari played. Look, when Dan Villari came into Syracuse, everybody thought he was going to be a quarterback, and people were kind of curious about that move. And then he makes a move to tight end, and actually turned out to be a really solid guy at tight end. Ended up being, I think, the way I've understood it, a fan favorite for Syracuse fans. So excited to see how David Clement can fill into that role. Feels like he's had some chances at times to be a big play guy. I remember he had a pretty solid play in the Tennessee game. He only had 3 catches last year, but one of them came in that Tennessee game, and I think he had like a 30-something yard reception against Duke later in the year as well. So he'll step in. Noah Myers will probably be the backup. He comes over from Western Kentucky. I would presume that he'll have a decent year. He had 357 yards and 3 touchdowns last year as a starter there. Looking at the offensive line, you got Trey Mack, Joe Cruz, Khalil Stewart, Byron Washington, and Cam Pringle. Now, that's what I've had for the majority of this. Here's the thing. This is a team that struggled mightily on the offensive line last year. Now, what I will say is that 4 or 5 of these guys were starters last year and had a good, considerable amount of snaps, over 600 for all of them. Here are the grades for all of these players. Trey Mack graded out 56.6 run block, 57.3 pass block. Joe Cruz graded out 51.5 run block, 61.8 pass block. Khalil Stewart in 13 blocking snaps last year as a freshman graded 67.1 run block, 73.1 pass block. Byron Washington, 51.8 run block, 48.5 pass block. And Cam Pringle, 51.4 run block, 46.8 pass block. Now, in saying that, and when you look at this screen here, here's what I'll note. The right side, as it clearly seemed, was the struggle point on pass block. That's where a lot of the pressure came from, was the right side of the line. Now, there were some times where you saw a miscommunication over the middle, but for the most part, the pressure came from the right side of the offensive line. A lot of miscommunications, a lot of things where either disguised, delayed blitzes, and guys just didn't quite connect on it. And I would expect that was a big focus over the offseason, if I were to guess, for the Syracuse offense, was trying to find a way to protect the quarterback a little better, trying to find a way to adapt to the blitz. If they can do that, the offense takes a significant step forward. I mean, and it's really not even close. They will take a significant step forward, on top of the fact that they should, hopefully, I mean, we don't wish injuries and we won't predict it as if there will be injuries, but barring injury, this team already is expected to take a big step forward. I would say that kind of increases with with just a competent offensive line this year. And it's young, but it's experienced. I think that's a good place to land for them at this time. When you look at the defense, it's defensive coordinator Vince Carey's comes over from Toledo. Going to be excited to kind of see where that goes for this team. Maybe he brings over a couple of transfers as well. One of them you'll see here on this line with Chris D'Apollonia. But it's going to be interesting to watch this team and how they kind of fill into this system. When you look at the projected starters here, it's going to be Adelaide Toonmize. I think I got that right, even though I struggled a bit. Comes over from UNLV, going to play on the defensive end. Keyshawn Johnson as a jack is going to be the edge rusher. And Keyshawn Johnson last year, for those who may not know who he is, comes over from UT Martin. And he was an all-FCS guy last year. 56 tackles, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, 53 tackles. I got the stats right here and just read them. 20 tackles for loss, 13 and a half sacks. Those are program records in tackles for loss and sacks for UT Martin. Again, an FCS All-American last year. Keyshawn Johnson's a guy I expect to see some very big things from in this 2026 season. As for Toonmize, 49 tackles last year, 7.5 for loss, and 6 sacks for the UNLV Rebels. This edge rushing duo, I think, is going to be a bit of a problem. I don't think they're going to be great, and I certainly don't expect those numbers once again in 2026. But I would say that you should expect some big things from that and expect a much better pass rush from this Syracuse D-line. Rashard Perry and then transfer Dylan Fontes comes over from Maryland. Both of those guys, Fontes has the most experience, 28 tackles, 4.5 for loss, 2 sacks last year at Maryland. As for Rashard Perry, didn't play a whole lot, had 4 tackles, half a sack, and half a tackle for loss. When you look at the linebacker position, mentioned Chris D'Apollonia. He comes over from Toledo. Antoine Delorier returns from last year, and Delorier last year, 60 tackles, 2.5 for loss, 1 sack, and 2 forced fumbles. D'Apollonia had 68 tackles, 3.5 for loss, and a sack. Was definitely used as the blitzing linebacker for the Toledo defense. Would expect similar here. When you look at those things, here's what I will tell you. The other leading tackler from the Syracuse team last year that joins Delorier was Gary Bryant III. 60 tackles, 4 for loss, 1 sack. I would expect to see a good amount of Gary Bryant subbed in here over the course of time. I think D'Apollonia steps in because he is used to the system, but Gary Bryant's going to be the sub linebacker for sure. You could also expect to see David Amapriola comes over, a junior, 31 tackles, 7.5 for loss last year. There's 4 linebackers here that can definitely step in and play at any time. So Syracuse, I think, is very, very comfortable there. You look in the DB room, and starting with the corners, Demetrius Samuel on the left side, Chris Peel on the right, and Davian Kerr at the nickel. When you look at all 3 of these guys, Davian Kerr actually led the team, or led this group in interceptions, 3 of them last year on the season. You look at the other guys. Demetrius Samuel had an interception and 9 PBUs, pass breakups. Chris Peel had 7 PBUs last year. This is a good defensive back room, and you should expect nothing less. Look, that was Fran Brown's specialty at Georgia. I would expect that to continue here at Syracuse. It has so far, and that was probably their position of comfort last year. They were really the biggest problem was they got demolished at the line of scrimmage, and then things kind of fell apart for them from there. If they can carry things over at the line of scrimmage, and I feel like this is a group that certainly will, at least be a little better at the line of scrimmage, then the secondary can continue to show the true talent they've got. When you look at the safeties, it's Cornell Perry and Brahim Long Jr. Now, I'm not fully bought in that we won't see Deuce Chestnut. I have him on the list here, and I think he's going to play a considerable amount. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised I missed that, but nonetheless, I think Deuce Chestnut will play a good amount too. As a matter of fact, I probably would have him starting over Brahim Long, but that's just me. 48 tackles last year, 3 breakups, a forced fumble. Brahim Long was very solid, 53 tackles. Cornell Perry was solid. Somewhere in there, Deuce Chestnut's going to play as well. So again, there's 3 safeties that can sub in and out throughout the course of the season as well. When you look at but when you look at this team from the outside looking in, I think Chestnut's my guy to watch just to see kind of how they utilize him. My other one, though, is going to be Chris D'Apollonia. I'm very excited to see what he brings to the table at the Power 4 level and how he can be a leader in this Vince Carey's defense. When you go back over to the offense, a guy I'm looking forward to seeing and kind of keeping my eyes on is Umari Hatcher. I talked about it earlier. Where will he fit into this team? Where will he fit into the program a little bit? The injuries are certainly a concern, but I feel like his talent can outweigh that. If he can get back on the field, I'm very excited to see where he lands and how that works out for him. So with that said, let's go ahead and move forward to the schedule, and it's popped up on your screen now. And it's a really interesting schedule to me, okay? Because this is the first year of ACC going to 9 games, and Syracuse is one of the 9-game schedules this year. But when you look at it, it is kind of brutal in the sense that the games you might want to play on the road are the games you play at home. Because you're more likely to lose these games anyways, whether you're at home or on the road, you're going to be an underdog. Why not get the games that are winnable at home and play the tough ones on the road and just, see what happens. The big one in this situation is Pitt and Virginia. Those are tough games that are on the road. But NC State, North Carolina, Boston College, all winnable games. All games I actually expect Syracuse to be favored in when they get to the time of playing these games. Beyond that, Louisville, Cal, SMU, Clemson, those are your home games in the ACC play, and they're going to be tough. They're going to be very tough. So I'm curious to see where it lands. The over-under sits at 4.5 on this team in 2026, with ACC title odds at 12,000 plus 12,500, and the national championship odds at plus 100,000, meaning that they are dead last in national championship odds, along with the majority of the rest of the country. So with that said, let's go ahead and predict the 12-game schedule, and then I'll give you a ceiling and a floor for this team. Starting at game number 1, it's going to be a win. It's New Hampshire. They're going to come out, kind of feel things out a little bit, but I think they dominate this game, get a little momentum going for week number 2. In that week 2 game, they get Cal at home. I think this Cal team is going to be a very serious dark horse in the ACC. I think that this is probably the most underrated team in the conference. I'm expecting some big things out of them. I think Cal's going to get the win. So Syracuse will start 1-1 on the year. They'll play Pitt on a short week, Thursday night, on the road at Pitt. I just don't see them being the more talented team, and I think that we're going to see, this is going to be the first game where we really see the test of this Syracuse line scrimmage on both the offensive and specifically that offensive line, but also the defensive side of the ball. Pitt's going to want to be the physical team. That's kind of the mantra that they have up there under Pat Narduzzi. And I think that's going to be the first real falter of that line of scrimmage. Pitt's going to get the win. They get a bye week before they would face UConn at home, or on the road in UConn up there in Stores. but I think they get a win over UConn. It's a transitioning program from Jim Mora to Jason Candle. I think they'll be a good team, but I would not expect the nail biter that we saw last year that went in overtime. Not at all. On October 10th, they go on the road to Virginia, Charlottesville specifically. And it's going to be a tough game, man. I think Bo Prabula is going to step in and be the starter this year for Virginia. They have a lot of talent returning. And where they lost some talent, I feel like they went to the portal pretty well. Tony Elliott's done a great job over there in Virginia. I'm going to give Virginia the win. That's going to be a tough start. 2-3. A tough game at home to follow that up against Louisville, and I think they're going to fall there too. I think Lincoln Keenholz is the starting quarterback at Louisville. With all the talent around him, I think this Louisville team is going to be dangerous as well. So 2-4 through the first 6. It's going to be a rough start. There's potential on the back end, though. There's 3 games that I think they're going to be favored in, even though they'll be the road team. And then can they pull an upset at home against one of the SMU, Clemson, Notre Dame? We'll find out. On the road against North Carolina, I think they'll be favored. I think they'll win that game. I'm not buying into North Carolina. I think they did a lot of work in the portal. I don't think they did enough work in the portal. This is a team that still has a lot to be desired, in my opinion. The defense might be a little bit better this year, but that's probably where it'll stop. So UNC, that'll be a win for Syracuse. They'll play SMU at home. I just think Kevin Jennings will be a Heisman contender this year. I think this SMU team is going to be a playoff threat once again. SMU is going to get the win. Clemson at home. This was a game that Syracuse won last year, even in the injury to Steve Angeli. I just don't buy it this year. I think this Clemson team, once again, the line of scrimmage will be there. And to be honest, I feel like Dabo's going to have this one in his mind, have this game circled a little bit as should have played better type of game. At this point as well, Christopher Vizina will be 8+ games into his career as a starting quarterback. Should be comfortable, ready to go. I don't foresee too many issues for Clemson in this game. Going on the road to Raleigh, Carter Finley Stadium, I think that Syracuse being the better team in this game, maybe not better in all positions, but I definitely think that NC State got kind of battered in the portal a little bit. And while the defense I expect to be good, CJ Bailey doesn't have a whole lot around him going into this year. I'm going to give Syracuse the win on the road. I think they'll follow that up with another win against Boston College. I don't think this Boston College team is there, and I don't think they're going to get there. There is a lot on this team to be desired. A lot of their star players are gone. Turbo Richard being a big one that left and transferred to Indiana. I just don't see a lot when I look at this Boston College team that's going to be very competitive in this conference. So 5-6. Yeah, 5-6 at this point. Going back home to the Carrier Dome, the JMA Wireless Dome, if you will, to face Notre Dame, a potential national championship favorite, to close the regular season out. At this point, Notre Dame's probably going to be a top 10, maybe even a top 5 team based on what I think they're going to do this year. And I just don't think it's going to be enough. I think, again, this is another game where they're just going to get overwhelmed at the line of scrimmage, kind of like I mentioned with Pitt. I should mention it with SMU and Clemson as well. I think it's going to happen here to close that out. Just get overwhelmed at that line of scrimmage. It'll close the season at 5-7, 3-6 in ACC play in year 1 of the 9-game schedule. So it's an over, and I'm pretty confident in the over. As a matter of fact, I think this team has a ceiling of probably 7. I think they can get to 7-5. I think this team has a floor. I'm gonna give their floor 4-8. I think they win 4 of these games. I think they're good enough to win 4. It's just, this isn't quite a team that's going to be the most competitive, and they're certainly not going to be an ACC championship contender, but they are certainly going to be a team that I think people will want to be concerned about when they play, especially if the offense and specifically the offensive line can get things together. It's a long season, and it's a long time until the season. September is, believe it or not, just over 3 months away, or 3 months away now as we are in June, but it's a long season. It's a long summer. Conditioning. Things will get right in the right time. Fran Brown's done a good job so far at Syracuse. They're a respectable program, and they've been a respectable program for the last decade. But the recruiting's doing a great job. I think this is a team that can do some serious damage. If I'm going to give them a bold prediction, I think they average 30 points per game this year, offensively. I think that's what they'll get. I see a lot of talent there, and I think that with Steve Angeli leading it, the way he played early last year, I have no reason to believe that they can't be a really good team. So that is pretty much it for the Syracuse team preview here in 2026. Let me know what you guys think down below. Again, if you're a Syracuse fan, let me know what I may have missed. You, again, know your team better than I do. I already know the Deuce Chestnut thing. He's going to be a starter. That will be corrected. But beyond that, let me know what else may have been missed. And yeah, with all that said, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. We'll see y'all tomorrow. And tomorrow, it's Oklahoma State. So, Cowboys fans, make sure you tune in. But we'll see you guys then for another episode of preview season here on Armchair Analysis.